Hey, it's me, Raika. Today we're going to have a look at Treznor, the Aggrieved from the Graveborn faction. Now, this here wears leather-based gear, is part of the Ranger class, and his primary role is to provide a significant amount of utility, control, and various other secondary buffs for your allies as well. So let's have a look at his skills. His ultimate skill, Purging Cleave. Now, this has a passive and an active component. Now, the passive component refers to when Treznor is dismounted from his horse, and the active component refers to when he's on his horse. So when he's on his horse, he'll have his full kit enabled, so that is all of his skills. However, if he's dismounted, he'll be severely hindered by his ability to use his skills. So let's have a look at them. When Treznor's health falls to 25% or below, he uses his spear to deal AoE damage to a small area of enemies. So he'll deal 500% AoE damage and then dismount his horse, during which time he is immune to damage and control effects. While Treznor is dismounted, he is only able to use his ultimate skill and normal attacks. So as we can see, he has two different variations. When the skill is actively used, Treznor will spin his spear around from a mounted position, knocking back and knocking over nearby enemies, dealing 300% damage. While dismounted, Treznor swings his broken sword repeatedly at an enemy 5 times, dealing 220% damage to each of them, and the final strike will knock them to the ground. The level 2 damage is increased to 360% while he's in the mounted position, and the level 3, while dismounted, the damage while he is dismounted is increased to 240%. So let's look at his next ability, Death Charge. So this is when he will move continually around the battlefield, interrupting and distracting enemies. Treznor charges towards the enemy with the highest attack rating, dealing 220% damage to all targets that are in his path, knocking them back and stunning them for 2 seconds. Treznor then stops behind the enemy and removes all protective shield effects they are currently using, and deals 240% damage to them, also knocking them back. Treznor is immune to control effects while using this skill, and the enemy target is unable to move. This skill prioritizes non-summoned entities. So as we can see over here, the level 2 and 3 increase the damage dealt from 240 all the way to 320% with his final attack to the enemy, and the charge component damage is increased to 240% from 220%. His next ability over here, Spear of Valor. Treznor faces toward the direction where targetable enemies are standing and swipes at them with his spear, dealing 260% damage to the enemies in front. The level 2 and 3 increase this damage to 300%, and the 30 engravings, enemies that are struck are unable to be healed for the following 8 seconds. So as we can see from here, this is a massive amount of healing reduction where the enemy's healing will be completely nullified. His next ability, Soul Barricade. While in a mounted position, every time Treznor deals 50% damage, it shall charge his mount with 15% energy. After the energy reaches 100% for his mount, it shall be consumed to generate a barrier that mitigates 55% of frontal damage for 10 seconds. So this is magic and physical damage. This skill can be triggered once every 15 seconds. So this is a little barrier or shield that appears in front of him. Treznor is immune to control effects while generating a barrier. The level 2 and 3 increase the shield's mitigation value to 85% frontal damage, and the 60 engravings, the shield mitigates all frontal damage. So what he will do, he will immediately go to the enemy and stand directly behind them. This will force the enemy to turn around, reducing incoming damage for your allies, distracting them using this shield, as he will not be able to take any damage using these abilities, and he will also reduce their recovery over here. So let's have a look at his signature item over here. When you unlock Oath of Faith, each time Soul Barricade generates a barrier, it increases the attack rating of Treznor and the closest to allied heroes by 40% for 6 seconds. So this means that if you have any invade-like heroes, he pairs extremely well with them. The level 10, the amount of energy Treznor's mount regenerates every second is increased to 3%. The level 20, this is increased from 3 to 5% for his mount. And the 30 signature item unlock, While dismounted, Treznor is immune to damage and control effects for 4 seconds. And if his mount's energy is fully recharged during this time, the duration of Treznor's immunity is extended to 6 seconds. So let's have a look at his furniture over here. When you unlock Undying Cadaver, the 3 out of 3, while mounted, damage dealt by enemies can only reduce Treznor's health down to 25% of his max health. So as we can see, this is a mini cheat death for him, as this will allow him to become immune for a couple of seconds and continue deal damage, stun them, and place various debuffs on the enemies. 9 out of 9, while dismounted, Treznor gains 30 life leech points and his energy regeneration is increased by 100 points. So let's have a look at how he does in battle. So we're going to have a look at him in this training dummy over here. So he immediately charges to the enemy, knocks them back and stuns him for a couple of seconds. This is the shield that he generates, and this is the frontal damage component that is mentioned in his skills. So any damage that is coming into him from that particular direction will be completely mitigated with his shield. So as we can see, the shield is now facing the enemies over here. Then he will be continually knocking them back. And as we can see, this shield's value is continually regenerating over time as he gets more energy for his mount. So let's have a look at his ultimate. So he will slash the enemy a couple of times through the AoE component and then the final slam over here. There we go. So let's have a look at how he does at a much higher level deficit. Now this over here is a 160 level deficit, and from this particular team, he is mainly used for his distraction component. As what he will do, he will immediately charge into the enemy lines, and this will distract the enemy heroes over here. So instead of them attacking your allies, such as Thorin or Odin over here, they will be forced to attack Treznor over here. This will allow your allies to build up energy and start dealing damage to the enemies. So let's have a look at how he does. So as soon as he starts battle, he will immediately charge to the enemy of the highest attack rating, being Tassi over here. He knocks them away. As we can see, he is starting to fight the other hero over here. Now he's continually charging to the enemies, as we can see over here, and he's getting healed by Silas's buff. This allows him to stay mounted and get that charge effects from him over here. Now he's dismounted as he's lost his horse. Now he'll gain a bit of life leech, immunity, and a bit of extra damage as well. As we can see, he's doing his slash attack over here with his broken sword instead of his spear. There we go. And as we can see, when he's dismounted, he's much slower. However, he's still extremely effective in battle. Now, other allies simply deal more damage than him, and that is why he's not as effective as he used to be. Now, he's still extremely powerful at his various control effects. Now, what is the minimum investment that I would recommend into this particular allied hero? Now, I would highly recommend getting him to at least 30 signature items. The reason for this is this gives him an additional effect, such as his immunity and to both damage and control based effects. And this allows him to be more effective in battle, extend that time where he can distract enemies, allowing your allies to build up their various abilities, ultimates, or energy. In addition, this also provides a decent amount of extra buffs, such as this 40% increase to attack rating for a couple of seconds. Now, from his furniture, I would only recommend getting his 3 furniture unlocked. The reason for this is while mounted, damage dealt by enemies can only reduce Treznor's health down to 25%. So what this means is this gives him an extra bit of utility, allowing him to survive longer and once again distract and control enemies. Now, I do not recommend getting his 30 or his 60 engravings, as this does not provide any additional benefit to him, as most of the time he is not the main damage and he's simply used for his distraction and immunity for a couple of seconds.